All right, good evening. We're going to get the webinar on its way. Very good evening to you and welcome to How to Be a Winner in the upcoming Property Boom webinar. The webinar is going to last for about an hour this evening. There's an opportunity to get some very good knowledge this evening. We're here to give you some very good education about what's happening around the market. It's a very exciting time in property, the best time I've seen in property for the last 20 years, and really looking forward to it. My name is Garth Davis. I'm the founder and CEO of Property Powerhouse, and we're going to take you through a little bit of a presentation this evening. Also on your screen, you'll be able to see Alan Lowe there, who is the BDM for BMT Tax Depreciation. Really, really interesting to know a little bit how depreciation helps you with a property. How it helps you with the cash flow of the property, and yeah, just all the different write-offs and what it actually means versus maybe not claiming any depreciation, or a second-hand property versus a new property. So Alan, you can hear me okay? Just give me the thumbs up if I'm coming through okay. Beautiful. Right, let's get the show on the road. We're going to go to the next slide if she will cooperate. There we go. All right, so just a disclaimer that the information tonight is general in nature. Please contact your own financial planner, accountant, and finance broker for your own specific requirements and needs. Tonight's information is very general. We'll go to the next slide. All right, just to give you a bit of background on our business. So Property Powerhouse are the experts in investment property. By providing education, support, and experience, Property Powerhouse enables mum and dad investors to buy properties all around Australia, helping them build up their wealth, enabling them to retire debt-free on their own home, and create multiple passive rental income streams. Next slide. Next slide, there we go. These are some of the free services that we offer to our clients. So this is all part of the circle of safety. So although we are the experts in the property side, we surround you with experts. If you don't have your own finance broker, we can refer you to one of our preferred experienced finance brokers. We help you with the property selection. We help you with the weekly cash flows to understand if the property will be cash flow positive or negative, and very important to understand that. So especially when you start buying multiple properties, we help you coordinate building and pest inspections and get you discounts. We help you with the property settlement with preferred settlement conveyancers and settlement agents. We help you with sourcing quality tenants. We use and recommend excellent property managers. We get discounts for you on that. Building insurances through EBM, Building Insurance, Landlord's Insurance, and can get you discounts as a Property Powerhouse client. We help you with depreciation schedules through BMT Tax Depreciation, which is Alan's job. And again, you'll see later on this evening that we negotiate Property Powerhouse discounts for our clients. And of course, our ongoing support for yourselves as the investor. We're very proud, and being the owner and the founder of the business, very proud of the Google reviews. If you get a chance, part of your due diligence, you want to check us out. We encourage that. Turn us upside down, inside out, find out about us. Go to Google. Very proud of the reviews. This one came through yesterday from Shirag. Shirag's one of our clients based in Melbourne, and him and his wife have recently bought a beautiful townhouse 11 kilometers north of Brisbane, and Everton Hills is the suburb. A beautiful development done by Sunland, who are a public listed company, and property is already doing really well for them. It's rented well above the asking price. So general theme that you'll see in our review. So please take a moment to check us out. Right, let's have a look what's happening in the property market. And I'm going to give you an update about what's going on around the country. So on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the logo there of CoreLogic. CoreLogic are the residential property Bible of Australia. They track every residential sale that is reported through the Landgates and Perth and all the property reporting bodies where properties need to be settled and where they handle the title, change of titles. So this is their job. They're independent. They're a third party business, and they're not aligned to any builder or developer. They are completely independent. What is really good with some of their reports, and this is one that comes out on the first day of every month. So this would have come out on the 1st of February, and you can see it's for all the data as of the 31st of January this year. First column takes you through every capital city on what's happened in the last month. It's very unusual, and it's only happened the last couple of months for the first time, probably in about 6 or 7 years, that every capital city is positive, right? So normally what happens is we would normally have the properties work in different cycles. So normally we would have, for example, Sydney and Melbourne doing really well, and the resource cities of Brisbane, Perth, and Darwin not doing well, and vice versa. When the resources are doing well, we would tend to see Perth, Brisbane, and Darwin doing really well, and Sydney and Melbourne not. But this is just a sign of the strength of the property market, that all of them are strong. Obviously, some are performing better, but it's wonderful to see every capital city is, you know, even on the back of the dreaded COVID, property has been extremely resilient. You know, if you've been following property, and you'll be a bit of a property nut if you're on here tonight, that we've had, even the banks themselves were predicting potentially, you know, 20% drops in property values because of COVID. And they very smartly come around and instead of talking about a 20% decline, they're talking about a 20 to 30% increase over the next 2 to 3 years. So there's a lot of confidence in property. As you'll hear a bit later, money is very cheap at the moment. People are borrowing to purchase appreciating assets, and property is one of the beneficiaries of that at the moment. So every capital city positive for the month. The quarter, so the quarter gives you a much better gauge as opposed to a month on month, which may be giving you some, you know, it might be erratic data over 1 month, but you can see here over the quarter really good. Perth's done a very sharp V-turn and has done a big turnaround. Darwin, which was also doing very tough, has had a V recovery, coming back really strong. And annually, all the properties going strong. Melbourne, because it had that extended lockdown and there was less sales going on for a period of time, quite a long period of time, because they couldn't have home opens, etc., is, you know, through their annual figures, they're lagging a bit, but that market's performing, you know, it's positive, which is good. Our role at Property Powerhouse is to try and determine which are the cities that have got the most upcycle for you and most affordable. And affordability comes down to your median prices. So if you come onto the right-hand side here, you'll see there's a couple of cities with median values below 500,000. You'll see Adelaide at 473, Perth at 484, and we have Darwin at 426. These cities are affordable. Brisbane's just over at 527. And as we'd expect, Sydney and Melbourne, your more expensive cities, more expensive to buy, more expensive to rent. This is from bottom right-hand side, Heron Todd White. They are also a big international valuation firm. And again, third-party independent data. They also, you know, their main business is about valuations. So they're out in the field doing hundreds of valuations, thousands of valuations each month, and reporting that information back. They produce on a monthly basis a national property clock. And, you know, we respect all the data that's coming in. So this one here in the orange, this slide is about houses. So these will be standalone houses. The next slide up is around apartments and units, which will be multiple dwellings together. So let's have a look at the clock. So the peak of the market, it's 12 o'clock, declining market 3 o'clock, bottom market 6 o'clock, and the rising market. Ideal place to be purchasing is probably from 6 o'clock through to 9 o'clock, maybe a little bit of 10 o'clock. All right, 12 o'clock's at a peak, and prices will decline on the right-hand side between 12 o'clock down to about 4, 5, 6 o'clock. So let's see what's happening with houses. As far as Heron Todd White is concerned with the valuations, nothing really in a declining market. Sydney is at the bottom, so they are forecasting and reporting that Sydney is at the bottom of the property clock. They're in the start of the recovery. They have Perth as a capital city. So I've put a red box around all the capital cities. Start of recovery, Darwin, Melbourne, In a rising market, Brisbane, Adelaide, and peak of the market, we've got Hobart. All right, so interesting. So and that's what was translated in the data we saw on the core logic, that all the capital cities were positive. They're in a positive trajectory. Right, next slide down is apartments. Same clock, just different color, and this refers to units and multiple dwellings. Right, so more so probably you'll find these are most of the data is more CBD. That's in most capital cities. That's where 70 to 80% of your apartments will be around the CBD within that 3 to 4 Ks, and most of it in that sort of 1 to 2 Ks of the CBDs. So in a declining market, you can still see that the Perth market, their valuations are showing that units in Perth as in apartments, still some softness there. In Sydney, some softness, declining market. They are calling that Melbourne is balanced out. On the other side here, we're seeing apartments and units in Darwin starting to recover, Brisbane starting to recover, rising market in Hobart and in Adelaide. So really interesting information again coming from an independent research of Heron Todd White. Gross rental yield. So basically how we get to a rental yield is we get the rent per week of a property, we multiply it by 52, that's 52 weeks in a year, and we divide it by the value of the property. So for example, if a property cost $400,000, was valued at $400,000, and it was renting at $400 a week, the rental yield, gross rental yield, would be 5.2%, or what we call dollar for dollar. 400,000 is renting at $400 a week. So what you can see here is, again, this will tell you on a trend, and this is to do with how much rent you're getting for your property versus what it's worth. This has a huge impact on the cash flow of your property. The higher the number, the stronger the rent, the stronger your cash flow. All right. You can see here Sydney, again, because prices are high in Sydney and Melbourne, and population is what's happening is people are moving out of the main cities of Sydney and Melbourne, and they're making a lifestyle change. So what you're finding there is also that there's vacancies. So in cities like Perth, Adelaide, Brisbane, very, very tight vacancy rates, not nearly enough rental properties, and rents going up. What we're finding in the big cities of Sydney and Melbourne, people are having a life change now. They're moving to within 1 to 2 hours of the CBD because of being able to work from home and maybe going into the office once a week, but they're still in commutable distance. But what's happening now is we've been seeing rents dropping in Sydney because of more supply, Melbourne rents dropping, and that also, there was a pipeline of construction for all the international migrants who were coming, which obviously haven't arrived because of our hard borders. So again, the better the yield, the higher the number, the stronger the cash flow. So the areas that we are researching strongly, Brisbane is our #1 location. Perth is our #2, and Adelaide is #3. Strong cash flows. Darwin also doing particularly well with the gross yields and renting. Right, this was out of the West Australian this last month, and we have a crisis here in Perth with shortage of rentals, and also the same again in Brisbane and also in Adelaide. This was our front page of the paper here in the West Australian, a 2-bedroom, 1 toilet, 800 inquiries for 1 property. It's crazy out there. If you talk to any property manager in Perth, they have no vacancies, and in fact we still have a moratorium on rent evictions and rent increases, which expires at the end of March, end of next month. What we are going to find in Perth is that rents will go up automatically, on average $30 to $50 as soon as the lease expires and the new lease is put in place. If they're vacant properties, they can move the rent up right now, and we're hearing stories of rents going up $150 to $200 a week. So this is a buying signal for an investor. It's obviously tough times for a tenant, but in Perth, property prices had dropped continuously for the last 5 years by about 22%, and your rents had dropped 25%. So anyone who's owned a property, and there are many of you here tonight that would have had a property that's, in Perth, and so your capital value had taken a bit of a hit, and so had your rent. So this is just normal forces coming back into play. But again, it's a real V shape of what's happening with that. The reasons for that from a rental perspective is we have a lot of expat Perth people coming back, expat Brisbane people coming back, and also people moving for lifestyle. Also in Perth, people, because we've had a hard border, if you work fly in, fly out before in the mining, you had to relocate and live in Perth. So we had 8,000 mining people that suddenly arrived that needed to be either buy or rent in Perth, and it's creates that sort of problem for us. This is an article also in the West Australian talking about rents, and that's with immediate effect. So you're talking about 400 a week property going to 480. You talk about a $500 a week property, going up another, going up to 600. So we're expecting some big movements. Again, that's a buying signal for an investor. It means that your cash flow is going to be very strong and improving. This graph here is produced by Westpac's researchers, their own researchers and economists, predicting for the next 3 years. As you can see, the standout city in the eyes of the economists for Westpac, they're showing Brisbane at a 20% growth over 3 years. So that's good, but it's also, that's manageable. They're not, it's not a 50 or 60% in the next 3 years. So that is very manageable, and so averaging out over each year, that's very sustainable in that period of time. They're predicting Perth to be the second best performer, followed by Sydney, Melbourne, and Adelaide. So again, that's Westpac's own researchers and economists. So good to see that. Money, we know, extremely cheap. We'll be going through some interest rates in a moment, but money, the lowest it's ever been, and very affordable if you qualify to borrow. I've got this information as of last night from one of our preferred finance brokers. So let's have a look at this. As an investor, your typical type of loan, if you can get an 80% what's called loan to value ratio, which means you basically putting in 20%, which is made up of either cash or equity from an existing property, and the bank will lend you the balance of the 80%. You can see fantastic interest rates, a variable interest rate for an investor at 3.04, and a 2-year fix at 2.54. These are amazing numbers. Even in the eyes of the bank, if you borrow at 90%, so you only have to put a 10% down. This suits some investors, particularly if you are trying to accumulate more properties quicker. You would go to a 90% loan to value ratio. You would pay mortgage insurance, but it's going to allow you to buy more properties more quickly. Again, you can see very attractive, even at 90%, very attractive interest rates, a variable 3.19 and 2.55. So in the eyes of the bank, if you fix it, there's no real difference between it's an 80 or 90%. Remembering we just saw the gross yields around 4.45%. So even without the mechanics, which we're going to show you in a moment, you can just see 5% incoming, 2.55 going out. So cash flow positive just on the raw basics there. Next slide. This was on Channel 7 Sunrise on Sunday, and the screen came up, and my wife took a photo for me because they were just talking about the impacts of COVID and people either making lifestyle changes or moving to, because they can work from home, moving to a lifestyle change. But it was really interesting that number 3 came up there, 14% intend to buy an investment property. So people, I think, have had, we've all had a big change of what's going on around us. I think people have had a lot of time to think. People that maybe thought they were in very secure industries and secure jobs, I think are realizing that, it's very, things are moving. Life nowadays is not, is not set and forget when it comes to work and income. So I think people are taking, their financial futures very seriously. They've been paying down their houses, even though interest rates are low. They've been paying down their mortgages much faster. They're looking after their financial futures, looking to buy investment properties. If they're into shares, buying shares, putting money in their self-managed super funds, etc. That's a property wrap of what's been happening in the market. So I hope there's been something of interest there. I am now going to hand you over to Alan Lowe, who is the BDM Business Development Manager from BMT Tax Depreciation. And what we wanted to really show tonight is one of the benefits of particularly a new property. So as you're an investor and you're looking to enter the market, are you going to go and buy a second-hand property that's maybe 4 or 5 years old with some unknowns? What are the tax depreciation? What are my tax savings? And in the eyes of the tax department, the ATO, as long as it's income producing, so whether that's a business or an investment property, if it has income coming in, so in the case of a rental property, it has rent coming in, you can claim costs and expenses against this. Now, in Australia, with the way the tax system works, depreciation makes a massive difference. And tonight, to explain it to you, Alan's going to walk you through a real live example. One of our clients recently bought in Brisbane a beautiful townhouse in the suburb of Strathpine, 22 kilometers north of Brisbane. It was a beautiful little development of 24 townhouses. I think there was 14 that went to owner occupiers and only 10 to investors. Beautiful location, near some bushland, so near trains, near schools, near shops, near freeway. So it ticked all the boxes. It was bought for $365,000, brand new, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, double lockup. Sorry, this one had a single lockup with a tandem car bay and rented at $365 a week. So rental yield of 5.2%. Good evening, Alan. Tell us a little bit about what was quite exciting for the owners when they got their BMT tax depreciation schedule.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Garth. I mean, as Garth said, it is actually a positive outlook for most of us across Australia. And as Garth also mentioned today, my spot tonight will be spent discussing some quick ins and outs of depreciation, and definitely spending some time on the real life case study regarding the investment property. It was purchased through Garth and Property Powerhouse team. So essentially, to kick things off, we wanted to touch base with what is tax depreciation. And as Garth mentioned, it is, as long as the property is an income producing property, old, new, renovated, it's always good to look at depreciation. And obviously there are some dates and ages and eligibilities to certain properties. But since this case study we're going to focus on is relatively new or new, these are the figures that will come back, and you'll see how positive they look. So depreciation is fair wear and tear. And as long as it's an income producing property, there will be claimable amounts of depreciation there for the investor. Garth? Okay, so commonly asked questions, the 3 main dots I will focus on is the last 3 there, but what is a quantity surveyor? For a strong focus for BNT, we are a quantity surveying company. We specialize in tax depreciation. That's all we do day in, day out. That is our bread and butter. We work alongside your accountants. We don't take over what they're meant to be doing or anything. We take a small part of what accountants do and basically expand and make sure that the investor is maximizing the deductions that's coming from or that they are eligible for through their investment properties. And the third point I just wanted to mention was it's just a risk side of things. So the ATO specifically states that accountants, solicitors, real estate agents, other property professionals, valuers are unfortunately not recognized to estimate construction costs for depreciation purposes. That is why everyone advises investors to come see a quantity surveyor or a quantity surveying firm like BNT. Yeah. Okay, so jumping into the property in Strathpine. As you can see right there, the purchase price, as Garth mentioned before, is $365. Rent is also $365 a week, or $365. Income per annum is just short of $19,000, and expenses are quite lower, so 17,108. From those details right there, pre-tax cash flow is actually $37 per week to have that property on your portfolio or on this client's portfolio. And if we move to the next slide, then the left side will actually show you without depreciation. First up, I just wanted to, I guess, stipulate what the figures would be. It is a positively geared property. After the net profit, after the tax payable is all accounted for, they will be having $23 per week to have this property on their portfolio. Now, the next slide will be the right side filled in or slowly filled in. And that is the scenario with this property in Strathpine with a depreciation schedule. Now, the difference right there, as you can see, is $10,200. That's not overall, that is in the first full financial year. Now, if we go to the next bit, that is the filling in the bottom right side. And so from positive gearing at $23 per week with depreciation, that actually jumps up to $95 per week. So obviously it is definitely a great idea to get depreciation done. We'll spend a bit of time on how these figures come about and what we claim and what assets can be claimed, and essentially, but that is an overview of this Strathpine or the Learmont Street property that we had a look at. So with components of depreciation, there are two sides. Obviously the capital works, the Division 43, and then the plant and equipment side, which is the Division 40. So you'll hear Div 43 and Div 40 quite a fair bit when you talk depreciation, but to focus on the left side. So the existing or the effective life of capital works or a property is 40 years. So BMT's schedule is a once-off for 40 years. And essentially, for one property, BMT only ever inspects the property once. Doesn't come back every few years or anything. There's no extra charges, just that once-off fee. Capital Works is claimed at 2.5% over 40 years, every year for 40 years. And then also that's applicable to renovations that are done by the investor too. So extensions, patio works, I guess, games rooms, what have you, depending on the property. If it's deemed structural work, that is also applicable to that, to 2.5%. On the right side there, plant and equipment, which is everything else that makes the house the home, blinds, carpets, curtains, air cons, everything of that sort. They have different rates of depreciation, each and every asset, and different rules do apply depending on what they are and the age of the property. But for time's sake, we'll keep moving on. Okay, so still spending some time on the Learmont Street, in Strathpine, sorry. The 40-year forecast for that property, there are two types of depreciation in that sense. So diminishing value method, which is the DV method, and a prime cost method, which is just a bit lower than, yeah, there you go, on either side. The end result essentially is the same, but if you can sort of slowly look, the diminishing value method is essentially giving you a lot more to sort of work with a little bit earlier on in the life of the property when it becomes an investment. Only because there's certain things like low value pool that get considered in that. So the actual figures jump a little bit higher than you would with a prime cost method. But as you can see, the totals, they both end up being the same over the life of the property. So focusing on diminishing value methods, since that's generally what most people sway towards. Looking at the different totals over the years for this property right there, plant and equipment, pooled equipment, and the total Division 40 and Division 43 right there. So the first year or the first entry right there isn't actually a first full year for the property, which was part of the case study just when the property was purchased. So obviously that's a pro rata sort of situation. So they don't get quite the full amount of a 12-month period. Now the first full financial year for this property is actually the second line right there. So as you can see, that total figure actually jumps up to over $10,000. And then gradually working through as assets depreciate over the years, as you would normally be aware of, these assets slowly diminish and the prices get lower. But at the end of the day, at the very lowest, you're still getting 2.5% of the structural depreciation, and that does last for the whole 40 years. So you can see from the, sorry Garth, I'll get you to go back a little bit. From the 1st of July 26 to the 30th of June 27, which is quite ahead in the future, essentially with the Division 40 plant, that is gone to effectively zero on the left-hand side. But the total of depreciation is still 6,750. Just to give you a fair idea of even when the plant and equipment finish up or mostly finish up, then you've still got quite a fair bit to claim in deductions through a depreciation schedule. Go next. Okay. This slide is to spend a bit of time breaking down the plant and equipment in that property. So most important things to look at right here is effective life and obviously the diminishing value basic rate. So the rate of depreciation, which is the two middle slides right there. Just running right off these examples, air conditioner, split systems, the effective life of those split systems in that property was 10 years and they depreciate at 20% essentially, working obviously with the low value pool. So once a asset drops below $1,000 and above 300 still, it has the ability to, or eligibility to jump into the low value pool. And that's how we maximize assets at a quicker rate they depreciate. And so that's how we maximize their assets and assist our investor clients to get the maximum amount they're entitled to. And moving forward with everything else, I mean, obviously garage door controls, their effective life is 5 years, but the total cost of the actual control is only $207. So anything under $300 in value for an investment property is an immediate write-off. That is why, although the effective life is 5 years, because it's under $300, it is written off in the first year at 100%. And basically another tool of how to make it worthwhile and push the envelope to get the best out of your investment property. Okay. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. We've got some frequently asked questions, I guess, to move forward. Commonly we get asked in our office, you know, doesn't my accountant look after that? It's tax. And the common question we have the answer for that. The answer that we have for that is, like I said before, we work alongside your accountants. We don't take over from submitting tax returns or anything like that. And like I said before, we take a small part of what the accountant does and basically expand on it and making sure that you're claiming absolutely every cent that is entitled to you when you have an investment property in your portfolio. Okay. Other common question is, isn't my property too old? And our response is always going to be, it's never too old to ask the question. Now, there have been some changes in the last few years about eligibility for plant and equipment and everything. So there are things that impact and the standing of cash flow, but doesn't matter if it's 30, 40 years old. If you have a property and you aren't sure if you're eligible or if you can claim or what amounts you can claim, it is our job to go through with you and advise. So we can actually have a look at if the property has had renovations done in the last 20 years. Now to the daily investor might not have the eye for renovations that have been done in 1995 or 1999. And so the property looks old altogether. But for that property that had been renovated, say the games room or the fourth bedroom or something like that, that was done in 1999, there is still a substantial amount of structural depreciation that may be claimable in that property that no one will be aware of until we do a bit of digging. So that's why we say, always give us a phone call and have that feasibility sort of talk with us in our office, and we'll go ahead, we'll let you know if it's worthwhile or not. And is it ever too late to claim depreciation? So we can amend up to 2 years or backdate, in other words, to 2 years for any of our clients. So if you have, or if you're just learning about depreciation right now, as I'm speaking to my camera, and you're finding, okay, I need to get in contact with Garth, I need to contact with Alan to discuss depreciation. And I've had my property rented out for the last 18 months. So peace of mind, don't stress too much. It's within that 2 year period, and we can definitely cover all those months and year and a half or so that's been covered. So up to 2 years is what we can backdate. Okay, the B&T difference here, I guess the ones I want to focus on, I guess, is B&T is an Australia-wide service, Australia-wide company. Obviously, I'm working out of the Perth office, but so each office corresponds to each of their states or the relative states. The other one that stands out right now is that we find our clients the average of almost $9,000, even after the changes in legislation in 2017. So in the first full financial year, we're averaging almost $9,000. So if you're hearing things from your mates over a Sunday barbecue that say, oh, it's an old property or it's an existing property, And no, you don't need to get it done anymore. It's not worth it. It's quite untrue. So to get it effective from the horse's mouth, give us a phone call and we'll run through the feasibility side of things. Our fee is 100% tax deductible. So therein itself pays for itself, 100% tax deductible. And I mean, we also have the BMT fee guarantee as well. So if we don't double your fee that's charged in the first full financial year, there will be no charges at all done for the whole process, even if we've come out and done the inspection out in Karratha or Kununurra or Strathpine. Basically, if we can't double in a first full financial year, then there'll be no charges for our clients. So that's the one at the bottom left. Middle one, I may as well run through them all. The middle bottom one right there is, so we don't outsource. So every part of the process for the BMT schedule is done by a BMT staff member, and we can guarantee that. So if you have a property in say Broome or Kununurra or Karratha or Albany, we won't actually pass on any charges. We will actually pull a few jobs together in those areas. We'll fly one of our site inspectors down there to do the inspections ourselves and make sure that it's done completely compliant, and so we can assure that you're actually maximizing the deductions for that property. Now, it also helps with minimizing your risk as an investor as well. All good? Okay. As the title says, BMT makes it easy. First 3 simple steps. So one right there, property details. So once you make the initial phone call, just to tell us some basic information, it's essentially a feasibility phone call. Do we say if it's a worthwhile property or not? So we'll ask some quick questions, and then we'll find the rest. You can just give us the address, the year, your name, and we can work with that. It's part of our job to find the rest as well. But the more information, the better. So it helps our jobs in the office. The site inspector in the middle. So our professionally trained staff. I am one of the site inspectors that carry out inspections in WA. So we go out and inspect the property, ensure that everything, right down to the spring-loaded door closes, the locks on your windows, everything, absolutely everything is accounted for. So it's not something that's sort of just looked over over a sheet or a floor plan. We actually go out there, take the photos, take the measurements, and ensure that everything is done compliant and as comprehensive as possible. And at the end, claiming the deductions, which is what everyone wants. The schedule will usually take 5 to 7 working days. I will say, as a little asterisk to that, due to COVID and what was last year, our turnaround times are a little bit longer than that. So we're sitting at, I think, 10 to 12 at the moment. But generally speaking, when we get on top of things, it'll be back down to 5 to 7 working days for our turnaround time. So once we receive all the information, that's how usually long it takes. This is an important slide. So BMT and Property Powerhouse have a partnership. Now, the standard fee for a residential property depreciation schedule is $770. Now, if you call us up and say, I'm a client of Garth and Property Powerhouse, that will automatically be reduced from $770 to $715, and that's all inclusive of GST. So that is all you pay for the depreciation schedule. 40 years, once off, 100% tax deductible, right there. And the other one is a commercial property. So if anyone out there is actually a commercial investor, they are quoted on quote by quote basis, case by case basis. And that's pretty much the last slide. So thank you for your time. Sorry, I think I ran over a little bit, Garth.
No, you did a fantastic job there. And what I would like to mention is, anyone's got a question, there is a Q&A tab. Not sure, Ellen, if you can see where it is, but myself as the host, it should be along the panel somewhere along the bottom. Is it along the bottom?
Yep, down the bottom.
There's a Q&A. So if anyone's got a question regarding anything in the first 2 up until now, please fire away your question and we'll answer it after. But thank you, Ellen. It's really interesting. The reason I wanted to explain that to the clients is that, and to the listeners tonight, is that it's really important when it comes to cash flows to understand, to maximize every opportunity you can. As we all pay a lot of PAYG tax, and we're looking for ways to legally minimize your tax, improve the cash flow. Now, these tools are here for you to use, and a lot of people don't know about these things. So if I come across an investor that maybe hasn't bought before, hasn't come through us, he might have bought a property a couple of years ago, and you mentioned to him, did you get a depreciation schedule done? And he looks at me blank, or she looks at me blank. What is that? and you say, wow, you know, you've just left 10 grand on the table over a couple of years. And as you say, at least you can go back and claim for a couple of years. So not all's lost. And also for the people listening tonight, if you ever decide to move out of your own home and move into another property, and original home you want to rent out, absolutely keep talking to me, because that will be one of the things I flag, is that yes, the property you lived in, now it's income producing. Doesn't matter if it's 5, 10, 20 years old. As Alan said, there will be some depreciation in that property, and you need to access that, and you need to exit through the report. So one-off only, ever, $715, fully tax deductible. So BMT do a fantastic job. Alan, investor himself, you got a property. Whereabouts is your investment property, Alan?
Our investment property is in Ellenbrook. Okay. So Nanny's Landing, which is actually quite close to the fires that were last week. So it was a bit touch and go. But yeah, everything's safe up there, and we'll get everything on board sooner or later. Then we literally just moved out over Christmas. So use the break to be productive.
So you've used it like that. It was originally your home, and now you've moved somewhere else, and you're gonna rent it out.
Yes, yeah. So we moved away from there, and just for simplicity's sake, day-to-day sort of work and that sort of thing. So yeah, no, we've been up there for 5 years. It's been great. It's a lovely place. But yeah, there was essentially time for us to move, and we'll definitely rent that out. We've got all the tools through everyone in our reach. So which is always good to take advantage of what you know.
Thank you, Alan. And so look, tonight we've spoken about what's been happening in the market. We've spoken about what's happening for regarding property prices. We saw all capital cities going up. We see rental yields are really strong in some cities compared to others. Some there's rents are going down, others are going really strongly. So although all capital cities are positive, some are better than others, right? And through our research, we believe that number one, generalized, okay, is Brisbane market number one, followed by Perth market number two, followed by Adelaide. This is for capital growth, for cash flow. It's a moving beast, so that may not be the case in 6 months or in 12 months' time. But what we wanted to do is use the example property again. So the numbers that Alan has used is they probably more gross numbers, they're general numbers. Now I'm going to sharpen the pencil. At Property Powerhouse, we have an accountant, chartered accountant prepared our own cash flow report. So it's an Excel based, has about 6 or 7 tabs. But these are the reports that any of the clients that have bought through Property Powerhouse, we insist that they have a weekly cash flow estimator report done so they can make a decision on the numbers. So this is the example. My client that bought there is Diego, but for privacy, I've referred to him as Mr. Smith. He bought it with his wife, Mrs. Smith. I've used just generic taxable incomes of 50,000 each. So they're not in the massive tax brackets. I think these are, you know, normal everyday sort of wages. So what we're showing again is that you don't have to be, you know, a CEO or a managing director to buy investment properties. In fact, 80% of investment properties are owned by mum and dad investors just trying to look after their superannuation. All right, they're trying to do something with property, low risk, and for when they retire. So this is the property that we will run these cash flow reports. So that property, the townhouse in Brisbane, cost $365. That only put $1,000 cash in. Everything else was borrowed at an 80% LVR. The rent's $365 a week. I'm using here now the variable interest rate. So as of today's rate, so that was the thing, the numbers Alan used, probably we prepared that probably last month. And but this is up-to-date interest rates and very specific now. So now we're drilling down. So we'd run this down here. They're buying it 50-50. Okay. On the right-hand side, these colors represent what's happening on a weekly basis. The black color here is the net rent. So although the tenant is paying $365, there's property management fees. There'll be a inspection report, etc. So they would average out $334 a week over the year. The red here is the total outgoings. That's the interest on the loan. That's the council rates. It's the water rates. It's got all the expenses taken into account. In fact, we've taken into account the settlement fees, we've included the BMT tax depreciation, we've included all the expenses, and this puts it on to a weekly basis. The yellow is the tax savings. So through the depreciation, fantastic, and the interest that we can claim on the loan, interest is tax deductible, $62 tax savings per week. And the green one is the position of the property. This is a real net position on the cash flow. So these clients are $64 cash flow positive a week, each and every week, which shows you over the year they're $3,236. So not only have we got a property that's a capital growth property, 22 kilometers north only of Brisbane, shops, schools, recreation, buses, trains, freeway, excellent location. We have a positive cash flow. So any person that, when we started investing about 17 years ago, some of the interest rates were 8.95, 8.75. The properties had a negative cash flow. This was, the green area was not a plus, it was a minus. So it was still, we were buying for capital growth, but you had to fund the cash flow. Now, this is why we're saying with these interest rates, it's the best time in 20 years to buy an investment property. Not only are you getting the capital growth, you're getting positive cash flow. If you go new, you have the peace of mind of it's under what the building's under warranty. You have all your appliances under warranties and guarantees, and you still cash flow positive. It can be a set and forget. And I'm looking at the cash flow here. This is the scenario if we go for variable interest rate at 3.04. If we go, the next slide I'm going to take you to is if we fixed it. So if we fix the interest rate, so at the moment at a variable, $64 a week cash flow positive. The next slide is if we use the fixed rate, which is even better. So you'll see it goes from the green area went from 64 to 80, and that's because the interest rate fixed is at 2.54. So again, capital growth property, $80 a week cash flow positive, works out at $4,184 a week cash flow positive. Now again, I'm not going to tell you what to do with that money. You would sit with that team, expert team you have around you, your financial planner, your accountant, and you work out what you're going to do with that extra $4,000. Are we going to use that money to pay down your own home loan faster? What are we going to use that for? So the beautiful thing is that it is cash flow positive, and talking to your expert of advisors, maybe that's one of the great ways to get your own home loan paid on quicker, and you have still an investment property out there that's gaining in value for you. So a fantastic time at the moment. And remember, if it's new, you don't have to sit there and worry about things breaking down or needing to replace things as the electrical or plumbing or other stuff needs to be replaced and repaired. So I know we've got a couple of questions which I'll get to now, but steps to being a winner in the upcoming property boom. As I say, I generally believe, and all the research is pointing that way, it's the best time in 20 years to purchase an investment property. Interest rates at 0.1%, the lowest they've ever been. The Reserve Bank have come out and said they do not expect that to change until 2024. So money is going to remain cheap for the next 3 years, right? They are not concerned that all the property markets are positive. In fact, they are, as people's equity positions grow, they know then people can use that money. Investors will use it to buy another property, which will create employment, but other people may use it to buy things and put money back into the economy. So they, until inflation hits the long range trajectory, around about 2.5%, interest rates are going to stay low. So for investors, anyone looking to borrow money, great window of opportunity in the short term for cheap money and to buy appreciating assets. Number one, most important thing, sit down with your finance broker. If you don't have one, reach out to me. We have got a preferred finance broker in every capital city. So someone who can sit across the desk from you or around the table with you and sit and have a chat with you. They are no cost to you. They get remunerated by the bank if a loan gets to settlement. A finance broker is so important. There's so many different loans. There's so many, and interest rates are moving. Some don't have the things that they need on them. And a broker will know, look, we need an offset. We need this to be linked. We need that to be there. We need them as standalone. And again, I can't give you financial advice around the setting up of a loan, but the broker will. Even if you're not buying an investment property, sit down with your broker, see how much they can save you. You know, a lot of people haven't checked or negotiated the interest rate for months. Even if you haven't phoned the bank for 3 months, the market's changed, things have tightened. The bank, the broker will give you tips about what to say to the bank, your bank to negotiate you a better rate. So even, as I say, if you don't want to buy an investment property, sit down with your broker. I honestly believe if you are an investor of any denomination, if you property, shares, whatever you invest in, your broker should be one of your best friends. Sit down, understand what you can do, how much you can borrow. Even if you don't borrow it, how much can I borrow? Are your structures set up correctly? Because that stuff can take time to position. The banks are so busy at the moment, and it's best to go in knowing straight away. So the first thing, if a client comes to me and wants to buy a property, the first thing we've got to know is that if they've either spoken to their broker, or if not, we get them aligned with one of our brokers. It's where it all starts, and the foundation is so important to get it done properly. Number 2, surround yourself with an expert team. In our case, with Property Powerhouse, you need to have a good team. You need a good finance broker. You're going to need a good property broker like ourselves, or property partner. You need an accountant. You need a good settlement conveyancer. You need a very good property manager. You need a good partner in depreciation, as in BMT tax depreciation. You need a good partner in insurance. We are aligned with EBM insurance, and again, can get some discounts for you there. So you need this good team. You can't just do it on your own and just let's have a go. It's not, you're not buying an ice cream for $5, and if it doesn't work, you throw it in the bin. These are properties of $400,000, $500,000. You're lending 80% against them. You've got to get them right. You need to have a good team before you even start. All right. If you don't start with the right team, you're going to make mistakes. Mistakes in property are expensive. Trust me, we've been there. We've learned ourselves. And the advantage is you get the experience of my successes and my failures as an investor, and of all my 500 clients. You share all the knowledge along that journey. Number 3, get educated, right? Listen to webinars like this. This is a free webinar tonight. The good thing with Property Powerhouse, there's never a hard sell. We haven't tried to sell you one property tonight. We will not try and sell you any properties. That's not what we do. We want to educate you so that you are ready to buy. And when you're ready to buy, that's when we help you. Webinars, news articles, property reports, read, get information, and ask questions. Ask questions of me, ask questions of your expert team. And every time you ask a question and you get it answered, it will build your confidence, because you need to make educated decisions. You can't just go in this and hope for the best. You need that strong team. You need to know, I've got option A, B, or there's only option A. There's option A, B, and C. What are the pros? What are the cons? What are my risks? So with property, you've got to understand risk, and you've got to manage the risk versus the reward. Number 4, understand the weekly, monthly, and annual cash flow. If you've only got one investment property, understand that. If you have a portfolio of multiple properties, it's very important. Any investor who's been investing for 5, 10, 15 years will absolutely understand that with me. They will understand that's where one of the areas people can go wrong, is that they don't understand the numbers and they cannot afford to hold the property. Property investing is holding for the long term. We're not traders. We're not buying and flipping and selling. That's not a property investor. That's a property trader. If you buy and hold long term and you build a portfolio of 3, 4, 5 properties, you've got to understand the cash flow to hold, because properties take time. It's not a get rich quick scheme. If you can't afford to hold the properties, you're going to fold. You're going to have to sell. And normally what happens when you sell, it happens at the worst time. You can't get the price you want, and it ends up being, a disappointment, because you've had to sell after 4 or 5 years, and you've got to be prepared to hold properties for 15 to 20 years. Right? be open-minded about where you might invest. So, you know, you initially as a first-time investor, you might think, oh, well, there's this house for sale 3 houses down. I know the street, I know the shops, I know, you know, I'm a bit of a guru in the area. But is that really the best place to invest? We spoke about risk. Is having your risk, your own home and your investment property in the same street, is that spreading your risk? Are you setting yourself up for the most opportunity? Or maybe it is, maybe it's not. But again, talk to your expert team. And in most cases, you will find that it's not the best thing for you to do. It's better to speak to your expert team, and they will say to you, look, well, if you're trying to get capital growth or you're trying to get cash flow, there are better opportunities, and these is where they are. Let's show you an example. Let's run you a cash flow. So it might be interstate, the property. So through Property Powerhouse, we have all the right systems and teams and experts around you, whether you're buying the property in Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne, Darwin, wherever. So stay open-minded to get your best opportunities. And finally, once you've got those 5 done, take action. If you want to be a winner, you're going to have to get educated, get your team, get set up, but take action, because you saw all the properties, every property, capital city, the prices are moving, right? And the longer you take, the longer the numbers are going to increase. And if you get in late, you're going to pay more. That's fine. If you're prepared to wait and pay more, you know, that's your prerogative. But what tends to happen is people get paralyzed by analysis. So, you know, it's really important you get all the education, you get set up, but you need to do something then, all right? There's no point just then going back to number 1 and going back on webinar. I know some people, they go on webinars and you know them, they go to expos and they keep going on the next one. And all they do is get themselves confused, because ultimately there's going to be some different pathways and there's some different strategies, and they think the more they're going to go, the more they're going to learn. But in fact, all they do is get more and more confused. And it's called paralysis by analysis. So they get paralyzed. They're scared to do anything because they're so confused. There's so much information. One saying buy there, the other one saying there, the other one saying, you know, one saying buy old, the other one saying buy new, the other one saying buy negative gear, the other one saying positive cash flow, one saying buy capital city, the other one saying buy in the rural, and they don't know where to turn. So get your great team of people around you. That's the presentation. We did have a question come up, so let me just see questions answered. So we've had some questions. Hi, Alan, great presentation. Anonymous attending, my question is, if you're wanting to buy your own home and then move out to make an investment property, can you claim all the items during that time living in the property? So it is a...
Sorry, Garth, I got ahead of myself and started typing the responses.
Okay, that's all. Did you respond there? Okay.
Yes, I have.
So, yes. Okay, so maybe you guys have been reading that in the background. So yes, and overall, just the writing thing. I mean, Alan's the expert there, but the override again is, unless it's income producing, you can't write anything off. So if it was earning income, that's fine. I heard that it becomes after it becomes income producing, that some parts of the schedule will not be allowed to depreciate it. The property is deemed existing. In other words, okay. So hopefully people have read that. As either in division 40 or 43 cannot be claimed for the life. Okay, not sure. Right. Excellent. Well done, Alan. So you've been, will you cover building in order to capture the COVID building bonuses? Sorry, what was that for? Will you cover building in order to capture the COVID building bonuses? Okay.
I wasn't too sure if that was for you.
Yeah, so look, there have been the bonuses have been around mostly for the first home buyer space, so and for owner occupier. The only state that I'm aware of that had an opportunity for investors was WA. For a short period, we had a $20,000 WA build grant, and that was for non-residents, residents, owner-occupiers, first-time buyers, and investors. But that has now come and gone. So there's no incentives for investors that I'm aware of around the country. These federal or state opportunities. So I don't know if we've got any other questions before we, I'm just going to go there, stop share. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, it's 7 o'clock on the dot, so I think we've done exceptionally well. Very pleased with the timing, but it's an exciting time, guys, for property. And I think it's really important that if you love property and you're confident in property, is an opportunity here for you to get into the market while certain cities are still affordable. Some of those cities you've seen, there's huge demand for. So property is affordable, money is cheap, vacancies are extremely low, rents are very strong, cash flow positive. It's an excellent time. But again, not all properties make good investment properties. So you can't, it may look at like, go and do this on your own. It's not that simple. And again, just remembering that at Property Powerhouse, again, we work at no cost to you. We educate you, support you, hold your hands. If the property gets to settlement, we will get paid like a normal real estate agent. We'd get paid a commission at settlement. But remembering, we won't let you settle on a property if it values below contract. So for your peace of mind is that you are buying a property that the bank, independent bank, will value at market value or better. We're getting paid out of the profits of the builder. And my job and the job of my team is to help hold your hand, identify the right properties, set that right team of people. We can create that team of experts around you. And as you see in our Google reviews, we've got raving fans. I'm so proud of the success stories that we've had. So yeah, hope that we can help you here. Reach out to us. I will be sending out a recording from this webinar tonight. Again, I'll put a link in there for our Google reviews. Please have a look what people are saying. We'd love to try and help you. And again, that first thing, if you haven't got a broker, finance broker, reach out to us. We'll get you talking to broker. It's the very first stage of trying to do something. Even if you do nothing, you've got to talk to the broker about your own home and the finances. And wanted to make a special thank you to Alan, our guest speaker tonight from BMT Tax Depreciation, showing how important depreciation is, particularly on new properties for your cash flow. And it's legal, and it's a great way to minimize your tax. So thank you very much, Alan. I found it very informative.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And if you want to listen to that again, as I said, it'll be on the video tonight when I email it out to you, the recording. And please feel free to reach out to us anytime. I just see one question just popped up quickly. Let me see. Just a thank you. You're very welcome. Thanks again. We plan to have an educational webinar once a month, so probably be 4 weeks from now, and we'll do a completely different topic to keep you educated and informed with what's going on in the market. So thank you very much from Property Powerhouse. Wishing you all the best. Cheers. Bye.